Speak your truth, be in your truth. What does that look like without the fear, without the shame, without the blame? How can you now have all of these pieces and parts of you come back into wholeness and express that into a world where it wasn't safe before? And it's safety now. It's coming into safety now. Hi Anya, how are you doing today?
Hey, beautiful soul. I'm good. I'm good. There's been a revelationary week, if that's even a word. I don't actually know, but
Good, good, good. So, do you want to tell everybody a little bit about your week or the since our last Zoom meeting, what that's been like for
yes.
you, what you've uncovered for yourself?
Yeah, so it's like always, we're always on a journey of self-discovery. Like I remember years ago when I went into this world, if you will. Obviously, I started when I was 17 being a tarot card reader, like, officially, but I was very open and not the norm, if you would say, growing up. So I was always quite, different and inclined to look into things and question things. But when I was asked the question of, or when do you think that will be healed? Or like, when's the point of healing that you get to? And I remember thinking, well, there is no destination point. This is not a road with a destinational end, unless that destinational end is ascension into a new body in the next lifetime, hundreds of years from it. I don't know. Like for now, for me, it feels like the point of it is the journey. And this journey has been one that sometimes has got like roads where I end up getting lost and these windy roads where it feels really dark and scary. And then all of a sudden it's all bright again and civilizations. And that's kind of what I feel like we've been feeling in the collective, and what I've been experiencing is like, felt like I didn't know if I was on the right road, even though I know I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. It just kind of felt like, where's this going? Where am I going? Where's the purpose? I had a lot of questions, kind of like uncertainty, if you will, in the limbo zone as well. And there's been a lot of different layers being shed over my kind of past year or two, of layers that I would just never have anticipated needed to go, and people that I never would have anticipated, people that I've gone through this ascension with as well. And different layers of hurt, different layers of pain, all different things that have kind of come to a culmination over this past year. There's been things that, okay, I kind of addressed them, kind of brought them to the surface. Like I felt like I addressed them as much as I could do in the human. And I did some energy work on them. And I kind of was like, right, well, what do I do? And kind of carried on with it. But it was still there. And I knew it was still there because I could feel it and it was bothering me. I'd kind of felt like there was nothing more that I could do in terms of being like, what more could I do in the human realm, And so I kind of just had to leave it until it became relevant. And then recently things became relevant again and it unraveled a new layer. And I had this realization of, well, I am very outspoken and I do call things out and I do require sometimes clarity and clear intentional energy to understand like where we're going, how much energy am I putting into this.
Yep.
That's just who I am, and I understand that that might not be for everyone. But what I've realized is I was carrying a lot of shame about being my truest authentic self, whether that looked like calling things out in the moment, whether that looked like, being quite loud sometimes, or like not obnoxiously, but not being afraid to share my opinion. And I feel like parts of me over the years became more people pleasing and became more tailored to suit other people instead of it being my truest expression of self. And even with like my music, my singing, my dancing, it became something that was a performance, was work. So it wasn't something that I just do normally, casually anymore, because there was this like subconscious pressure, all the different layers of authenticity. And today I had this real awakening that I can no longer carry guilt or shame over how other people perceive me when I'm in my truest expression of self.
Yeah.
As long as that expression of self is not with like this nasty, horrible intention to harm anyone, then I really can't be responsible for how someone perceives that energetic response, like how they perceive that, how they take that, how they interpret that, how that affects their life. That's not my responsibility. And I really had to kind of step into that today and shift from feeling shame and shift from feeling fear and guilt and, ooh, should I have posted that? Should I have said that? Should I have done that? Shift from those emotions into, actually, that was my truest expression of self. It was done without the intention to harm.
Yes.
And so that's it. Like, I can't take on someone else's projection of anything else. Like, that's just the simple flow of life. We can't be responsible for the reactions and projections. And it was a real empowering moment to feel sovereign in my authenticity, to not feel like I had to suppress my truth and be afraid of sharing that and afraid of a reaction to that.
That's so beautiful. I would definitely
Mhm.
have to, like, circle that piece because that's also aspect that I'm moving through too, is coming into
Mhm.
this month was like, "Okay, time to be in my truth." It doesn't matter. Like, it just was a massive catalyst for total uncertainty. I was like, "I have no
Yep.
clue." And so I was sitting with that and just being, "Okay, I know this is heading somewhere, and I know I've already made a massive shift. It's just leading me into that clarity point." And that's what I feel like
Yeah.
uncertainty does in and around there.
Mm.
Energy of uncertainty is like, okay, we'll just be here for a second, and then once the clarity points hit in there, they're big. They're really
Yes,
big.
exactly. And I
Yep.
know when you're going through it, you're like me, you go to the depths of the depths and then surface
Yes.
back up and like, oh, I
Yep.
got there. And it's like sometimes I'm like, we choose the, what's the best word? The most adventurous route, I would say. It's like
I would definitely
which
say
is
that
the
for
most
myself.
adventurous route we can go down.
Yep.
I just wanted to kind of recognize for you, for me, for anyone that's watching this that's also going through that, like how big of a deal this is. Having
Yes.
access to that part of us, I think is just such a key part of this journey at the moment. And, like on the other hand, if you are someone that is kind of projecting and blaming a lot of your pain and choices and reflections onto someone else, that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's a human thing, but it's not going to help in the long term evolution of your growth because you're going to stay in a loop of blame and anger. And so it's really the best thing you can do is look at how your choices, how your actions, how you can also forgive yourself and work on that shadow work. Like, I think that's so important, or whatever you want to call it, them inner layers, to be able to recognize, whether we are the ones stepping into his truth, or that's also a form of stepping into your truth, is by not blaming it on other people and not projecting that pain to an alternative source when in reality, we know on a level that we create everything we experience, we call it in, and we get different experiences through different humans. And so
Right.
blaming is just a waste of energy, in my opinion.
Oh, totally.
Mm.
It's a lovely distraction from self, I would say. Blame is a lovely
Mhm.
distraction from self. And it is very
Mhm.
human. It's in human nature. And like I've done
Yeah,
plenty of that in my existence where that's just
me
flown up and
too.
I'm like, ooh, look at that.
Mhm.
I would have to say with that in where we're at with the collective is we've already cut these links and ties to our sovereignty. And that is an
Yep.
aspect of the in-betweenness that we're feeling too, is because we're not exactly sure how it feels to not have that, a lot of us do. We've been in
Mhm.
that cycle for such a long time where we haven't had our empowerment or our freedom, and our truth has been taken away in some sort of a way, that it's coming back to us, and we're just navigating, "Okay, let me just take a step in this direction," knowing that my body at once in the 3D aspect went back into those shame places, that's what it was used to, and
Mhm.
for me, in the last couple of weeks, I would say I felt those shame places and I was like, "Ooh,
Yep.
that's sexy. I'm gonna move this into a catalyst and see where we can go with it." Okay.
Mhm.
How can I move that into
Awesome.
myself in a powerful way and get myself out there? And it did mean going freaking deep. I tell you, like I like to go in those spaces. It's like, okay, I'm gonna pull in there and I'm gonna go have a some playtime in that really deepness because in that deepness, seeing the biggest truth of myself, all of those shadows, the darkness of what we think is darkness when it's really just ourselves, right? Is our empowerment point to going, "Hey, here I am. This is it. You can take it, you can leave it, and also I'm gonna own myself in a way that I'm not going to project that onto others. I'm not gonna stay in
Mhm.
that distraction phase because that's all it is. It's a distraction
Yep.
now." That and we're headed already in that 5D. That's being placed and integrating within itself. So it's seeing that, knowing that, and going, okay, I'm going to make that different choice here and use the energy for something else.
Yeah. Oh, so 100% true. And using that energy for something else is the key. And whether that's, again, on both sides of the coin here, it's the same lesson through different experiences, as we always
Yes.
know that can be the case. You know, we're learning authenticity, empowerment, and sovereignty. Sovereignty? I'm saying that.
Yes.
But also, it can come through, like we've said, the different layers of recognizing, don't get distracted, whether that's the person that is blaming or the person that's being blamed or the emotion that are tied up involved in it or whatever it is. Like, don't let the trigger be the thing that you focused on, let the root be the focus of your intentional energy. You know, it's like
Right.
looking at the plant and trying to figure out how it grows from the flower at the top. It's not going to
Yep.
work. Like, we need to
Yep.
understand the root cycle to be able to understand where it's growing from, how to repot it, how to remove
Right.
it. You know, you can't just cut off the top of a flower and hope that it will grow back, because 9 times out of 10 the flower's going to grow back. And so the thorn, the weed, whatever you want to use the analogy of.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I absolutely agree with that. Uh-huh.
yeah.
And also too with that in the distraction phase, we're at a point now where we can see it from a different perspective. It doesn't feel
Mhm.
like it's in that intensity where we're just in it and we're just going at it over and over and over again. That was a good period of time in our existence, that's for sure. Um, Heading into the roots is I see it, I take ownership of it, and where does that take me if I go all the way down to the root? And in my own self-expression, how do I want to pull that? Because now we're in creationary space. Like, what does that look like to me? Do I want to pull it entirely out, or do I want to alchemize it, transform it into
Mm,
something even more that's myself? So we have
yeah.
really great choices now to move into those energies.
And that's something that you said before a minute ago as well, that I thought, oh, that again was a little trigger, like a little sparky
Uh,
in my brain, because I'm so used to kind of acknowledging something that's not conducive with my current vibration and then looking to remove it, because that's kind of how we've learned over the past few years. You know,
right,
if it's not
right.
aligning with you, you get rid of it. But then when you said that, oh, this is a catalyst I can use to transform, I was like, oh shit, yeah, of course.
Even like with things that we don't feel
Hmm.
like you're saying with energies that we were just like, "Okay, that doesn't resonate, time to get rid of it." Okay.
Yep.
Now, I mean, in this 5th energy, this 5th density energy, it's, "Okay, well, that doesn't quite work for me. How can I turn that into something that does work for me?" Okay, it doesn't mean I have to
Yep.
get rid of it, cut the ties. It means let's play a different dance here and see how that can
Yeah.
move through.
The way you put that was like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. Because it's like seeing it as an energy source.
Yes.
Everything is energy. And so now we're moving into that more quantum way of seeing. It's
Yes.
like, oh, okay, yes, the human emotions attached to that energy are not great. But if we actually detach the human emotions to it and look
Yes.
at the power of the energy itself, that transformational potential that was there, it was like the ingredients for baking multiple things. You could have made a cake, you could have made brownies, you could have made anything. Like, it was like the potential is there to transform that energy into what you are focusing it onto. So again,
Yes.
instead of removing it and releasing it, it was like, okay, I'll detach the things that don't feel resonant to the human and then transform that energy into creating something new. And it's like not wasting that quantum power that
Yes.
belongs to me anyways, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. Beautifully said. Like, that's it. Golden nugget right there.
Little golden
The
nugget.
golden nugget.
The quantum self understanding that now we don't need to process this in a slow 3D way, in that like drudged, oh, we'll process it and feel it and
Yep.
sit in it and cry about it and then get that. Who wants
It's
to
gonna
do
take us like 3, 4 months,
that?
who knows?
Yeah, literally, it can take, and this same thing has been going on for me for months and years, and it's like for about a year, and it's like it's felt so long to get
Yep,
to this place, and I'm sure there was other lessons along the way for sure, but
yep,
like to get to this place of empowerment and to kind of feel like, right, okay, I'm releasing that responsibility was a real
yes.
like big layer for me, because obviously I don't aim to be a people pleaser, but over the times of generational healing and surviving in certain environments and in school and, to fit in, I ended up molding myself to be like a version of me that at least felt existent, but like different versions that were like pleasable to some people and different levels of me with some people. And so it was like
Yes.
watered down versions of me. And it was like, you know what? That's not, no, like that's not working for me
Yep.
anymore. Yeah, I just can't do that. And so I think as much as we've kept talking about authenticity, sovereignty, empowerment, they're the three words we came up with as the reoccurring themes this past few weeks. I also think that shedding of the kind of shadows and the need to be watered down to fit in, like you said,
Right.
illumination is coming on anything that's not meant to be in this next future pathway. And so that does mean clearing out situations, people, places, things that you are a watered down version of self in. They're going to be brought to the surface to reflect on why and how you can either change that, or maybe it'll be time to move on from that.
Right, right. It's getting really apparent with that now because as a
Hmm.
energetic being, like I cannot not be myself in any of those versions.
Right.
And I did the
Yeah.
same thing. I'm like, huh, with this person, I act like this. With this person, I act like this.
Hmm.
Isn't that
Yeah.
cute?
Just little tweaks.
Tiny little shifts there. And now
Mhm.
it's like, yeah, that's nope.
Yeah. No, it's not working
That's
for
just
me
not
anymore.
there anymore. Yep, yep, yep. So, and all of those little teeny pieces are now coming back into the whole picture. And
Mm.
they're inflecting the entirety of who you are. And whoever is not going to take the entirety of who you are will shift out. They won't be in that space anymore with you, and you don't have to do anything about it.
Yep. Literally. You don't
Literally.
even have to try. But do you know what? Like, the one thing I learned from all this too is I didn't even realize, genuinely, did not even realize how much of myself I was sacrificing to exist in that environment. And
Wow.
then when being forced out of that environment was not a choice, and like by me personally, on an energetic level, universal level, that's what I'm saying.
Yep.
I feel I was shown so much of myself, and it
Yeah.
made me emotional at the time to think of how much of me I'd actually locked away just to feel a sense of love and validation and acceptance.
Mhm.
And it really made me sad because obviously I wasn't blaming anyone around me. That was my choice. I subconsciously chose to do that because of my own wounds of abandonment or need to be validated, whatever it was, insecurities, I don't know, layers and layers. And it was like I exchanged one for the other. I received healing in some sense from filling a gap.
Yep.
But then in exchange for that, I had to give away parts of me, not to them, just to the locked room of subconscious selves.
Yep.
And, because again, it's not about blame. This person, people, experience, job, whatever it is just a mirror reflection of them wounds that I was literally just putting a bandage on for a long time. And so being removed out of that environment, I was forced to get to know them parts of me again because slowly they felt safe enough to kind of show up a bit and like thoughts to do certain things and say certain things and be a certain way. And then I recognized I don't feel like I could do this in that environment. And it was like the post reflection of understanding that no, I did not feel suppressed. I did not feel suppressed in any way until looking afterwards, until regaining them parts of self and
Yes.
feeling like, wow, okay, I could not imagine shrinking back into that mold now.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, beautifully
Mm.
said. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And at the time, that was, at least for me, felt necessary because of those
Yeah, it
little
was.
pieces in there, right? Like, energetically and all the things that we were working through, it was like, that part can come out right now, and that part is not there, because it's
Mhm.
not feeling vibrationally safe at the moment.
Yeah.
And for me,
Mhm.
especially the last few weeks, has been diving deep into, as I've been doing this energetic work for a very, very long time, even since I was little, especially the shamanic work, and it was not
Mhm.
to be out there, to be in the self with. And it's just even over the last few weeks of I've gotten these little twinges of okay, okay, like all of that is going away now where I can get out with this fully. And it's
Yep.
such a liberation piece to be able to do that.
Mm, truly. Liberation is the definitely the right word. And like you say, the world wasn't a place also that was safe in general. Like, and I
Yes.
think the word is the witch wound. That's how I've seen it translated in the spiritual community on my perspective. And it's basically the concept of how many lifetimes we've lived where we've actually been persecuted for your
Yep.
light, and how many times we've been persecuted for trying to make change and making a herbal remedy or doing some musical healing or whatever the fuck,
Right.
being the little witchy woman in the woods. And this lifetime was a real push to heal that, and especially in the women's lineage, in my opinion, in the feminine lineage, there was a big wound there to heal for all of us, which is what created the insecurity, the jealousy, the pitting against each other as well. It was all coming from that fear and that place of just like, well, I can't show my light and I can't be accepted and there's judgment and it's just so much nastiness and
Yep.
heaviness. And it's like that liberation, like you say, yeah, I felt it. And actually, speaking of the woman ancestral energy, there's a few songs I have that kind of I listen to that just set off a little fire in my belly
Ooh,
of the feminine kind. I definitely feel my soul is feminine, my oversoul's feminine. I have a lot of that feminine energy and that feminine kind of, not want to say rage, but definitely tied to the experiences of the feminine soul. Let's put it that
right.
way. And it came up the other day, this song that was playing, and I had this whole emotional reaction in my body, and it was this is a big one, and it was almost like the reclamation of the wild woman self is coming to the collective's head. And now I don't know what that means for everyone individually. I can only speak of what it means to me. But for me personally, it was not a anger thing, not a anything against masculinity or anything. It was a remembrance of self. And just like I've been explaining, and me and Z been talking about today about how I felt like I had to meet parts of me again and get to know them, I feel like this is a big part of self that
Yep.
over these kind of years of generational attempts of ascension, we have had to suppress to survive.
Yep.
And it was like this wild woman within that has this fire and this excitement that I've met before once or twice in me, but I don't know how to put the words on it. It felt like a total different level of self,
Yes.
And I didn't. My dad's singing. I do apologize if you guys can hear.
I
This
love
thing that
it.
told him to be quiet for 1 hour, and he can't even manage that. So I'm really sorry, guys. Got thin walls. But yeah, going back to the finishing up on that point, there was a lot of sadness and a lot of pain in the womenkind and in everyone's kind. But for me personally, I was feeling that. And I remember the first time I felt that on a deep level on an experience with some beautiful plant medicine. It was like a whole transmutational energy for that experience. And what a powerful experience. But also bringing it back to the original point, my point was it was like, yes, parts of me were sad that I'd lost them parts over the years, but I also recognize, as you said, that it's a survival technique. And I became a very, not physically masculine, but very dominant, controlling, angry, over
Yep.
kind of bearing, because of the fear within my feminine self and how unsafe she felt. I shifted so much into that masculine energy and kind of lived there predominantly for my teenage years that it was a big push for me to go back into a feminine role and pet, and going into being a mother helped with that as well. But the there's need for it. That's kind of what I'm trying to say. Like, don't look at it and think, oh, why have I lost this part of self and why have I done this and why did I do that? Like, we could all sit there and do that all day long. The
Yep.
point of it is you did that to survive, because at that time that version of you was like, I'm not coming forward, this is not a safe place for me.
Yep.
And that is valid in itself. And I think the parts come forward when they're needed to, and no more before.
The point of that feminine coming through and moving its way through, which I would say over the last 3 weeks is this I've seen this in the collective and this massive push through of that piece to get all the fear out of the space of it. So
Mhm.
we have our liberation piece running through there. And I want to just bring into the space, what can you guys do about that when you're feeling that? When you're feeling
Mm.
that energy come in? What do you do with it? What does it look like? Because the bodies are still getting used to this empowerment of the feminine, and sometimes that can get
Mhm.
intertwined with the masculine that's also doing its healing work and what that looks like. So I would say for me, be very open to the newness that's coming in with the feminine energy.
Mm.
Very much in flow right now, very much so in her truth, very much so in her power. And she's seeing these pieces of herself that aren't co-aligned anymore, which would be the
Mhm.
shame, the blame, the fear pieces, the overthrow of the masculine energy that was there at one point. She's seeing
Mhm.
through that piece. And also now she's not uh, getting so angry at the masculine. For a period of time there, she was like, I swear, like, you guys are gonna be gone. That's it, right?
It's true, it's true. I was there for a time and I flitted back there a little bit in that it's like when you feel backed in a corner, and it's
Oh, yeah,
definitely a vibrational energy that was a subconscious pattern of, again, blame, but also the blame that came from previous experiences and,
exactly.
in the collective energy of the feminine in being suppressed by the patriarchy, and it's definitely been a thing in the energetic lines. And so we've all been I think what you've said is very accurate. The layers of that reclamation and coming back to us in the past few weeks is important. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt though. I feel like you won't finish.
No, you're totally good. Yeah, no, I was just coming back into what can we do with that energy now? It's coming into a balance because the feminine is now opening her hand to the masculine instead of going psh, psh, psh,
Mhm.
screw you,
Mhm.
which was valid. It was a valid point to be in. So we're coming
It
into a
was.
balanced space with that, with the masculine, and she's now okay. I can open my hand a little bit to the masculine and get itself balanced. So I would say a few things that you guys can do from a very very basic level is to be in the unknown for a while. That's totally okay. Knowing that is okay. You might not have all the answers right now. If things are unknown, you don't have to take action on it. You can sit with that for a period of time until, and that's the flow right there with the feminine, the unknown and not knowing. She can flow with that, right? She can be like, yeah, okay, I'm going to see what happens though. Get your curiosity involved. I'm curious about what can be in the space with this energy. And then, like you've discussed a lot, and it's been so beautiful, is speak your truth, be in your truth. What does that look like without the fear, without the shame, without the blame? How can you now have all of these pieces and parts of you come back into wholeness and express that into a world where it wasn't safe before? And it's safety now. It's coming into safety now.
Definitely coming into safety. And I think the only tiny thing I would add to that, because it's pretty much exactly what I feel is what we should be doing right now. Like if anyone wanted advice on what can I be doing, is exactly what Zia's just said there. The only thing I would add to that is the vulnerability for me. So
Yeah.
because I lived so much in the masculine, vulnerability was like Voldemort. It was a no-go area for me. Just total physical repulsion from it, like physically cringe of vulnerability, or like accepting help or asking for help, or which created a real sense of loneliness and real sense of isolation and lack of community and support. And I have the same group around me that I had around me going into having my first son a year and a half ago. And I feel completely different at this time compared to when I did then, because my approach, and I'm not blaming it all on me, but also the layers that I've done and the layers they've done, but the layers I've done to be open to asking for help, asking what help I need, in what way I need it from the right people, and not feeling shame for that, like you say, and having so many different openness to being vulnerable and to not being afraid of being judged or afraid of being perceived differently or any of those things, because that was the hardest thing for me, was to be vulnerable and also to then express something from a place of, this has hurt me, so this is why I want to communicate with this, instead of creating a scene, starting a little bicker, saying a little comment, shifting that energy, because we're all guilty of that. We're all humans. We've all lived in that energy, especially if you've been with someone 13 years. It's a long time. And so when me and Brad was navigating this feminine and masculine energies, it was a case of I had to look at where am I shifting into my defense and attack? Where am I
Yeah.
shifting into masculinity? Where am I shifting into, you know, that defense mode, that fight or flight mode, instead of saying, that really upset me, that really hurt me, and I want to talk about it because that used to just make me cringe so bad. So getting to that place of vulnerability was a huge shift in being able to accept that feminine part in me. You know, I've been working on it for a while now, but I've definitely even noticed the layers even recently. Just being able to articulate myself about my emotions and vulnerability and not feel guilt for that and not feel like embarrassed or ashamed or like I have to use something else to deflect the true emotion. It feels really liberating, going back to what you were saying, that liberation of being able to just speak my truth, like the throat chakra is doing
Like
now.
the throat chakra, I know. I'm like, "Yep." I
Like, yeah, I'm
felt that
feeling
energy move up and I was like, "Okay."
yeah, vulnerability is the only thing I'd add. That's probably what I'd say is like the everything we've talked about today, I feel really perfectly sums up the emotional roller coaster that we're all on
Yes.
right now. But and this goes for a lot of men and masculine energy too. Like I'm not just exclusifying it to the women. I can only just speak on what I experience at this time, and in my experience, I do feel very connected to the feminine, oversoul and the feminine energies, and so I feel I predominantly focus more on that. But in the human, I lived in my masculine. So I've had to work through the paradigms of the masculine energy for me personally. And, you know, I see a lot of women in my area that are in the masculine, and it's not a choice. A lot of them are alone. A lot of them are sole
Right.
providers for children. A lot of them are dealing with danger literally on their doorstep, you know, and fear and so they are forced to live like a mama bear in pure masculine protection and provider mode because there is no available masculine energy for that kind of role in the current society as a balance. But it's rising now, and we're all coming to a union point, and that is when we will be, in my opinion, completely unstoppable as a collective because it's the union of them souls together and like the same page. It's like everyone will be
Right.
on the same page in
Right.
what we're trying to achieve as the overall souls, if that makes sense.
Yes, yes, yes. As an overall, like, unity consciousness, I would say, together.
Yeah, as the
Yeah,
collective
yep,
consciousness as
yep,
those like
yeah,
yes, we connect with the feminine and the masculine and the humans and the ETs and the all different types of beings. And of course, them things are all valid, but at the end of the day, we're all part of one collective consciousness with the
exactly.
intentional focus to ascend this collective race of beings and this collective consciousness. And so you know, I think that'll just bring such harmony instead of us fighting each other on a human
Exactly,
level and even on a
exactly.
soul level. Because, yeah, on a human level, it's been bad, but on a soul level, there was still like resentment and
There was
anger
all
going
kinds
on.
of things happening on a soul level.
Layers going on there.
Yeah, that was a lot of layers. Bringing it back into the point of vulnerability. Vulnerability is it's the jam of the universe, I wanna say, moving through our physical body. If we have our vulnerability fully open and we're feeling that the ability to do that, that is our truth coming out. That is how we connect with each other too. That's
Yeah.
how we our essence moves through the space and we can see each other, eye to eye because of that
Yeah.
vulnerability piece. And it has been shut down for a long time for me too. I was in my masculine for a while as a necessity, and that piece, of course, didn't also want to have that vulnerability running through there. And now it's like
Yeah.
that's the key to my unity consciousness. Key to me connecting to other people is my vulnerability, my deepness, my
Yeah.
hey. Instead of I'm gonna totally shut you out of the game. Okay, it's hey, look, I'm feeling like really sad right now, and I just I'm gonna open the door to that sadness. I'm gonna tell somebody about it, because otherwise, I'll shut myself out. So that's not
Yes.
anymore, It's not where we're at
Mhm.
anymore. So I'd say coming
No.
back into that golden nugget into this piece is really lean into vulnerability. Really open up
Mhm.
to others, to yourself in a way that you haven't expressed yourself before. And that does mean going into vulnerable places that's safe.
Mhm.
Right? That's getting safe
Yeah.
now. We're
Yeah.
wanting to do it. We're like, "Okay, let's do it now. I'm
Yeah,
gonna be
I'm
vulnerable.
ready.
I'm
It's
ready."
like jumping off the diving board. Like you think you're ready, and then you get there, and you're like, oh, like this is a lot deeper than I thought. You know, that's what I feel like vulnerability is that. But then you jump, and it's not that bad. And I also learned that over the past year or so of unraveling, like probably more, but let's say the past year of actively unraveling my vulnerability on a conscious level, there has been times where I've done it and it's been thrown back in my face completely by the wrong people. And that's absolutely also fine. Like I've learned that not everyone's gonna take it how we intend it also. Like,
Sure.
and so the what I would suggest as my like little what would I do is get really comfortable with being vulnerable with yourself first.
Yeah.
So, like, really write yourself a letter, be vulnerable, write to previous versions of self,
Yes.
people, versions of you that mess shit up, that didn't do the right things, you know, all them versions. Forgive them, connect with them, be vulnerable with why you did that, why it was hurting, why was them actions there in the first place. Because once you can kind of get used to sitting with it in self, and not feeling that shame or embarrassment and wanting to kind of like shift it
Right.
off, if you
Right.
can like sit in that with yourself, then even when you might share that with someone that's not on the frequency level to receive that and see your intention behind it, you will be able to stand true in your vibration and being like, do you know what? Okay, I take your response. That's your free will to do so. But I am not going to be ashamed or I'm not going to suppress
Right.
my authentic and my vulnerability that's coming through here. And being able to do that is like a superpower.
To get vulnerable with yourself, also, I want to just bring in the frequency of forgiveness because it's so important when you're getting in there to
Mm,
fill those shame spaces with yourself to be like, okay, that was a piece, and I'm going to forgive myself for it. And the more you can forgive yourself for it, the more you can move that in your authenticity and move it outwards as well, because you'll be emanating
mhm.
it. And then at that point, it's whatever somebody else is gonna say is their business, and that's fine. It's not gonna trigger
Exactly.
your whole system into doom. Just to kinda close this off and move this in, today we worked with sovereignty, our truth, and empowerment, and using that energy as a catalyst as well, and coming into vulnerability and truly being yourself and being able to work with these energies in a way that catalyzes your personal empowerment, your strength, and who you are as an individual. So I really
Mhm.
appreciate you, Anya,
I
and
love
whatever else
that.
you have to say to close.
Beautiful. Yeah, all I want to say is let's just take literally 30 seconds, spend a minute dropping into the heart space and just kind of tune into your own energy a little bit so that you're aware of your own vibrational space and your own vibrational energy that's going on here. Because before we can do any of the authenticity, sovereignty, empowerment, vulnerability. It's about truly connecting in with yourself, getting out of the mind, getting out of the ego, getting out of the stress and all the human responsibilities and everything that's been carried up there, and really just shifting into the heart space and just feeling that transitional shift into the heart, spending a couple of seconds breathing there and just setting the intention that you are opening up your heart to transforming into the next evolutional version of self, which may mean parts that are returning home and it may mean meeting new parts along the way. But it's being open to this process and being open to being vulnerable, speaking your truth authentically, feeling free, liberated, and sovereign, and feeling empowered and confident enough to do so. So let them words absorb into yourself and allow them to be the defining energy of your intentional focus over the next couple of weeks to help yourself and the collective energy transform in the best way possible. And so when we feel ready, you can just open your eyes if you went off anywhere like we did and just return back into your human self, wiggling the fingers and the toes and opening your eyes when you're ready.
Thank you so much, guys.
But
Really
yeah,
great.
thank you, Z, as well for
Absolutely.
everything.
And we love you guys so much.
We do.
Bye.